Okay, thank you. All right, good afternoon. At this time, the Board of Supervisors meeting will be held using electronic means in compliance with Goochland County's Continuity of Government Ordinance, Section 1. In light of the potential health risks, the Board of Supervisors meeting room will not be open to the public, but you can access the meetings as follows shown on the screen. By joining the meeting live, you will be provided an opportunity to make comments during citizen comment and/or during the public hearings. Again, the information's on the screen, how to join. If you do have comments on the public hearing items, you may also send comments to by email to boscomment@goochlandva.us or contact 804-556-5811. So there's your public service announcement. Hereby call the meeting to order. First item of business is the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Supervisor John Lumpkins will lead us in a prayer, and Supervisor Ken Peterson will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, gracious God, we start this gathering offering up a word of thanks for your goodness and for your mercy. As we come together to promote the well-being of the people of our county, bless the process as well as the product. Give us a blessing so that our words and our actions are one in unity, and that we are able to listen to each other, and in so doing, we shall with good heart walk hand in hand facing the future. Continue to give us the wisdom and courage that we need. It is in your precious name we pray and give thanks. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Lumpkins, and thank you, Mr. Peterson. The next item of business is presentation of a resolution of recognition for John Badesky. Ms. Biskowitz, will you read this for us, please? You weren't ready for that, were you? Sorry. You want my copy?
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm focusing on some others.
Here.
Would one of the board members like to read it? I think that would be nice.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Goochland County Board of Supervisors Resolution of Recognition. Whereas it is the desire of the Goochland County Board of Supervisors to express well-deserved acknowledgement and recognition to Mr. John A. Badesky, who has rendered exemplary service to the residents of Goochland County, the county staff, and the Board of Supervisors. And whereas John Badesky has announced his resignation as County Administrator of Goochland County after more than 3 years of dedicated service. And whereas John Badesky brought to Goochland County his 25 years of experience in local government, including that of department head in Washington County, Maryland, county administrator for New Kent County, deputy county administrator for Hanover County, executive director of the Virginia Workers' Compensation Commission, and city management experience in Hagerstown, Maryland, and Manassas, Virginia. And whereas August of 2016, John Badesky was hired as county administrator for Goochland County. And whereas John Badesky also gives his talents and time in service as an instructor in the Virginia Tech Center for Public Administration and Policy Local Government Certificate Program, as a member of the Virginia Local Government Management Association, the International City County Management Association, LEAD Virginia, and in serving on the Board of Directors for Leadership Metro Richmond. And whereas during the course of John Badesky's demonstrating exceptional financial leadership as county administrator, Goochland County has achieved a AAA rating from Moody's Investment Services, becoming the smallest county in the nation to achieve a AAA rating from Moody's. and being the county's second time earning the highest AAA rating by a credit rating agency. And whereas John Badesky has contributed incalculably to further the successes of Goochland County, to include the multi-phase replacement of the county's financial system and establishing an innovative 25-year capital improvement program, as well as initiating and completing multiple projects, including construction of a new animal shelter, Haydensville Fire Station 6, the Emergency Communications Center and Operations Center, and the renovation of the Central High School Cultural and Educational Center. And whereas John Badesky has demonstrated loyalty to Goochland County and a steadfast dedication to the best interests of the residents of Goochland County. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Goochland County Board of Supervisors hereby commends, recognizes, appreciates, and sincerely thanks Mr. Badesky for his leadership and dedication to our county and offers him our best wishes.
That have allowed me to serve this community. And I get to say this now, and there's no suck-up credit. I have really valued the insight that the elected boards have provided to me. I've learned from you. Hopefully, I've been able to provide you. So most of the work is Lisa, and we just get to follow her lead some days. But as a team, the level of work that August 1st would have been 4 years for me with this team, and to see individuals develop, grow professionally has been really an area of pride for me. Your support in allowing us to reorganize in different ways really allowed for that to occur. And that, to me, seeing the staff grow and develop and tackle the challenges that we've had over the past 4 years, and there's been a number. I'm extremely proud of that work that we have done together. There was a number of projects that, you can't capture everything in a resolution. There's some of the little things that we've done as a community that I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of our engagement as a community. We start with the citizen. I mean, everything we do starts with the citizen feedback and input. And sometimes that's pretty direct, and that's what we need, and that's what makes us a better community. Sometimes it's not always we don't always end with what we start with as a prospect of a project, and that's because it's better because our citizens engage throughout all of our processes. The transparency, we joke about that we are a transparent organization. It's not a joke, it's a principle. It's a fundamental belief that that's how we engage with the citizens in our community, and we're better for it. And I have valued having the opportunity to lead this team with that in mind. This is an interesting time, not only with COVID. COVID's been a challenge for all of us, not just in government, but every single member of our community. Obviously, with the tragic events that have happened, that is causing differences of opinion and perspective right now in many communities. Goochland's not immune from that. We have to learn and to continue to grow each and every day. One thing I am proud, though, is as a community, we can recognize differences. We can recognize areas where we need to grow and continue to develop, and we can do it civilly, and we can do it based on trust and respect and moving forward. And that's, there's a lot of work to continue to be done, not only in Goochland, but throughout the communities. But I really have valued the opportunity to bring diverse perspectives to the table and have those challenging conversations, and we come out better for it. And so it really has allowed me to work with this team and the citizens of this community. I learned there wasn't a single day in my almost 4 years that I haven't learned from one of you, the staff, or a citizen in this community. And that's what you wake up for, and that's what you get to, drives you. I haven't been shy on some of my recommendations and opinions, and you guys have respected and allowed me to be frank with you. And then at the end of the day, I remember who my bosses are. And that allows for us to be better. It allows for us to make better decisions on behalf of our residents and challenging those perspectives. And really, I thank you for that. I thank the team. I know I'm moving along, and professionally when you do that, there's, you're always going to miss some folks. I know I would miss someone by name. the entire leadership team that I've had the pleasure to work with, everyone down to the staff. You know, I'm going to miss Lisa quite a bit. I'm going to miss Knight Norman quite a bit. I'm going to miss my admin team and I've made a lot of friends in this community. And while I'm going to continue to be a neighbor, I'm going to continue to be a friend. And I really value that. I'm proud of the work that we've done with the business community and our expanded reach with economic development and the chamber. I'm proud of the recognition of the work we're doing with the Historical Society and the history in the county. I'm proud of the work we did with our agricultural community, and to see that continue to grow. There's a lot of things that I will never forget, and you've provided me the opportunity and the pleasure to do that and serve this community, support my family. And with that, I take great pride and really honor the opportunity that you provided me to serve. You know, when I got here, one of the things I said was I had big high heels to fill, and I did. And those will quite never be filled the way they deserve to be. And I, you know, I've come, when I was earlier in my career, I used to think I can plan out what tomorrow is going to bring sometimes. You know, if you had asked me if I'd have been dealing with COVID 5 years ago, I'd have been very wrong. And so I just don't believe sometimes that you can plan, but I do believe that maybe there is a time and place for people. And hopefully the past 4 years was a little bit of my time and place to be able to commit and serve the citizens of Goochland and these boards and work with this very talented team. And so I will be excited to be the neighbor looking across the border at all the continued success that goes on in Goochland. And just thank you and thank the staff just truly for the honor to have the opportunity to serve. So thank you very much. I appreciate the recognition.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Mr. Badesky. Now, we've done the kind of the ceremony. We actually need to have a motion to approve this resolution. Anyone have a motion to approve? Don? Don, okay. A second?
Second.
Okay, Ken. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? Okay. So it is official, so the resolution does pass. Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Mr. Badesky. Next item is the chair comments. Don't want to go too much into it, but I know that everyone is watching what's going on in the nation. It's very disturbing, and we pray that we will continue to have good folks working together here in Goochland, so some of that looting and rioting type activities do not come here. But on a positive note, on Sunday, the Goochland High School class of 2020 held a successful senior parade, and they will graduate on June 16th, the class of 2020, at the Goochland Drive-In. So congratulations to all of our seniors. Today, a few of us got an opportunity, one-on-one, or two of us, to visit and tour the animal shelter. And I will tell you, this community is going to be so proud of that facility. It's going to serve us well for decades to come. And the last comment I have is beginning on July 1, the General Assembly has passed a regional gas tax that will include Goochland County. So when you buy gasoline, I encourage you to buy gasoline in Goochland County, because a portion of that money will come back to us to help us with our roads. So as you're traveling around, if you are in another part of, in another county, get back here first before you buy your gas. So those are my comments. Okay. We have county administrator comments. Mr. Badesky, any operational things you'd like to tell us about?
Yes, Madam Chairman, just a few additional comments. And as I said earlier, I knew I was going to forget someone. And Jeremy's sitting in the audience, but Dr. Raley and all of the schools, I've really valued, you and I started about the same time, and I'm jumping ship on you, but we've been able to accomplish a lot together, and I've been really proud of everything that's going on at the schools, and just personally have valued our opportunity and really the relationship both boards have together. And so you will be missed, my friend, and thank you for everything you've done for our school system. Couple things I did want to update the board on, Madam Chairman. Just, in the midst of everything else, we are still responding to COVID-19 and have had to develop numerous operational plans. The county has a phased approach to our operational plan. We are in phase 1. We are still open and doing business each and every day. As of right now, while the building is still closed, all of our residents, if you need certain business with the county, you can make an appointment with any of the county departments and still accomplish your business. We still have drop-off, pickup service. Many people are using that, and we're still accomplishing a lot. And quite honestly, been really proud of some of the feedback we've gotten. We'll hear from certain people that do business with us of, you guys have been able to find a way to keep things very seamless and efficient, and I'm really proud of the staff that have been able to maintain that. All being said, we are still in phase 1 and monitoring the governor's announcements. As we speak, the governor has a press conference. Last week, he had shared that it may potentially be as soon as the end of this week where phase 2 would begin for the state. It'd be interesting to see if he's still on that path or not, and we'll monitor that. In Goochland, the most current information we have is that we had 101 positive cases. I think this board and community knows that we've had a fair amount of our cases actually within the prison system here. So about 45 of those cases are actually there, and the remainder 56 are actually in our community. Many of these individuals have recovered already, but they still show up as a tally because they were once positive. So there's a lot of good work being done. I'm really proud of this community, the health department, fire and rescue. A number of our departments worked together on a community testing event that was very successful up at Central High. Very well executed. If you would have showed up there, it was very efficient. We got a lot of good feedback from the citizens that participated in those testing opportunities.
Yeah.
And as we have the opportunity to do more of that, we will do so in the future. Did want to talk about, just a reminder, the census is still going on. We're just under 70% participation here in Goochland County. That's pretty good, all considering, compared to some other jurisdictions. We're in the top tier of responses within Virginia, but there's still over 30% of our residents that have the opportunity to participate and be counted, and we encourage them to do so. And they're still accepting those online and phone call ways to respond to the census. But at some point, there will be the census takers, if you will, that will go out and do door-to-door. We don't have more information on that right now. I don't know if COVID's going to add an interesting twist on how that would be done. But as of right now, still encouraging people to participate this way to avoid the need for that. I believe our residents know that there is a June Republican primary for Senate that is on June 23rd. That has been pushed back from its original date. So June 23rd is the date everyone should have on their calendar. There are means to vote outside of that. We just encourage you to contact our general register at 804-556-5803 as our citizens have more questions about the upcoming election. Today, Mr. Stamey is going to share with you a farm tractor tire program. This was based on citizen feedback. We're proud to have the opportunity to share that with the board. One of the things that you'll be asked to consider through Mr. Stamey's presentation is the potential to do a request to set, because there is a fee associated with that program, and that becomes a part of our fee ordinance. Just wanted to let the board know that if you're comfortable doing the request to set, we'd set that for July. So he'll revisit that with you during his presentation. Ms. Lachelette had the opportunity to share with you about the shelter. We are wrapping up the final stages of the shelter, and plan as of right now to be open to the public beginning June 15th. There will be a virtual ribbon cutting, if you will, that we will share online, that individuals that have an interest in seeing the shelter that can't actually physically come out, and based on either what phase the government's operating on. If we're on phase 1, you could still make appointments and go out and see it, but once we go into phase 2, the shelter will be broadly open to the public. But until then, or if you just can't make it to the shelter, if you have interest, you will actually be able to go online and take a virtual tour of basically the entire shelter. And so we're excited to be able to share that with the public and continue our partnership with pet lovers. They've been great. when we can do the formal get-together, whether that's while I'm here or after, Pet Lovers is prepared to make their final contribution in full to the shelter. And so extremely excited about that relationship, bringing that shelter to life and supporting this board and Ms. Dixon's vision. Mentioned earlier, we're all aware of situations, tragic situations in our nation right now. I do want the board to know that we obviously are concerned about our citizens and the impact of Goochland County. Been working very closely. Sheriff Creasy put out a message, as you may know. The Sheriff's Department certainly values the diversity of this community and the opinions and everything. They're staying vigilant to make sure folks are safe, but also making sure that they're open-minded to continuing to hear and learn from this community. And so, you know, as needed, I'll say I've been very proud of his leadership, not only with that issue, but many in his short tenure. And it's been a pleasure to work with him and continue to stand ready and work with the Sheriff's Department and their response. While it's in any kind of situation, fire and rescue is also behind the scenes, being prepared to respond and plan and staff and those kinds of things. And just proud of the overall public safety team and the folks that we have there. I will just end, over the past weekend, this board was made aware, and it made it to the press, that a gentleman actually fell into a well out in District 1, had quite a tumble, but was safe at the end of the day. And want to just thank, you know, when we respond to emergencies, whether it's something like anything that would create concerns for the safety of our citizens, to one gentleman in a well, we respond as not only a team here in Goochland, but as a region. Henrico showed up to help us with their rescue teams and other communities in this region, and just the regional cooperation we have is just phenomenal. And just thank the other counties and communities that come together with us to make those kinds of response and be available to support our citizens on small needs or big. And so just proud of the team. So, Ms. Leschlet, that's all I have today.
Okay. All right, that's wonderful, Mr. Badesky. Thank you for that. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is request to postpone agenda items and additions, deletions, or changes in the order of presentation. I do have two, but before us, if there's anyone else who has any additions, changes, or deletions at this point? No? So if there is no objection, I would like to move two items from the consent agenda, which are items number 2 and number 3, as they're numbered on there, 3633 and 3618, out of the consent agenda, and move them to after item number 4 in the new business agenda, and that would be right after number 3625. So that's my request. If there's no objection, we'll make that change.
Madam Chairman, if I could just ask, and I apologize, I think it may be best if we could move it after item 6.
After 6?
If you'd be comfortable to get through the budget overview, Dr. Rayleigh's presentation.
Okay, sure.
If that's okay with the board.
I'm good with that. I was thinking to put it right after the budget, but that's okay. Move it to after number 6, after item 3628. Any objection, board? Okay, great. All right, next item on the agenda is the citizen comment period. So Ms. Biskowitz, do we have any citizens who wish to comment at this point?
I see Jonathan Lyle, so I will unmute him.
Okay.
Hello?
Waiting for some voice to say, oh, I was just told I was unmuted. Jonathan Lyle, 1521 Mannequin Road. And really, before I start, I also want to iterate my appreciation to Mr. Badesky. He has mentored me in some respects, and I will try to be a testimony to some of the patience and goodwill that he exposed or expressed during my interactions with him. And so thank you, Mr. Badesky, Godspeed, and don't forget how to find Goochland. Moving on, I do want to speak to the board as one of the directors for the Monacan Soil and Water Conservation District. Like you, we've been under some different operating systems, but we have stayed on mission. In fact, in the last 6 weeks, we have met with 19 different producers in the district, 14 of which are in Goochland. So our agricultural conservation projects, which are focused on improved productivity, are continuing, and I would suggest to the board that your support for Monacan soil and water conservation is also supporting early on in the food chain, continued food supply and nutrition for the United States. We've been able to stay mission focused because of some of the really solid support we've got from Goochland staff, and I want to make sure I mention that Ms. Kawitz, Bernie Buzzard, and Eric Stinney have all helped us conduct our May meeting in a virtual environment, much as this meeting is going on now. As we're all aware, His Excellency, the Governor of Virginia, has limited activities, and that has presented challenges to us, but we have been able to meet with FOA legislation, and that is in large part due to the efforts of Goochland County staff helping us navigate how to use Zoom, how to utilize our computers for Zoom meetings, and then also utilize the auditorium at the Agricultural Center. So thank you, Mr. Buzzard, Ms. Kawitz, and Mr. Stamey for that support, and Mr. Badesky for allowing them to help us. I also want to let you know that we have paid attention to what you have done with your internal budgets. You have asked your internal departments to reduce their operating expenses for fiscal year 20 by 5%. You did not extend that same request to outside partner agencies like Monacan, but at our May meeting, we did authorize a 5% reduction in the support we receive from Goochland County. And I've spoken with Ms. Horlocker, and we are going to follow the procedure she has recommended so that we can be part of the team. And we appreciate very much the support we get in the good times, and we want to be there and continue to be part of the team when things get a little different than what we're normally used to. Ms. Beskowitz has asked me to limit my comments to 3 minutes. I'm trusting that she has been keeping track of my time. I will share some additional comments at 6 o'clock, so any of you who want to come late and miss those, I certainly would understand that. Thank you very much. I appreciate what you folks are doing, and I hope that Monacan can continue to be a part of the efforts that make Goochland the special place it is. How'd I do?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lau. Do we have anyone else?
Okay.
We have no other citizen comments at this point. Have we received any emails, do you know, to the board for citizen comment? Oh, that's for public comment. Never mind. Okay. Don't give me that look. All right, the next item is minutes approval. So we have before us approval to approve the minutes of April 7th and April 21st, 2020. Can we have a motion, assuming everyone's read them, have a motion to approve those two sets of meeting minutes?
Madam Chair, I'll move that we approve the 2 sets of minutes as presented.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Benner. Second?
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any comment, discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, so now we are on to reports. First is VDOT, and we have Mr. Harlow, I believe, is on the line.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Badesky, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Mark Harlow. I'll be representing VDOT today and doing the monthly report. I hope you had the opportunity to go over our monthly report. A couple of things to note on that report. All of our primary mowing has been completed for the first cycle. Our crews are currently working on our secondary routes, mowing. Also, the secondary schedule resurfacing should be coming to an end this week. They should be completed up this week. All of the surface treatment and cake seal treatments that were done. We had a total of 107 work requests this past month. We completed 93 of those. Another note, all of our speed studies that have been requested that involve traffic counts have been suspended until further notice due to possible incorrect counts due to the COVID-19. They don't want to have the counters out now and possibly get untrue count that's on a regular basis. Some of those have been postponed. Other than that, that's about all I have today. If you have any questions about the report or anything that I can try to answer, I am open to you.
Any questions at this point? No. I can't let you off that easy. This is Susan. I do have a couple small requests that have been in request phase for a couple months. What I'll do is just gather them back up and put them in one email to you rather than go over them right now. Should that be still sent to Marshall, Mr. Wynn, or to you?
You can send it to Marshall and copy me. That way I'll make sure we both get it.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll just do it. That's probably the simplest way rather than go through them. Well, I thank you for your report. Is there anything else you need to add?
I would just like to thank Mr. Badesky for all his support towards the department, and it's been a real pleasure working with you, and we'll be seeing you again because you're not moving too far away from us anyway.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. The next report is introduction of new county staff, and that is in the board packet. We have one new employee, Ernest Wood III. So welcome to the county. Also in the board packet is the fire rescue report. It's quite extensive. He goes through all the activities that they've been involved in. I would like to just mention that they did receive the Gold American Heart Association Mission Lifeline Award. That's pretty special. Takes a lot to win that, so congratulations on that. And thank you for all you're doing, absolutely. Also, planning and development activity is in the packet, and the accounts payable report is in the packet. Unless there are any questions about that, you can read that at your leisure. Okay, now, the consent agenda. Mr. Podesky?
Yes, Madam Chairman, thank you very much. As a reminder, the board has decided to move items 2 and 3 out of the consent agenda, so I'll just be reviewing everything else. Item 1, as the board will recall, throughout the emergency declarations, there have been certain actions that, as county administrator, I have taken that we follow up with the board on. There's an additional temporary action that we're asking the board to consider here under consent today. Just to be clear on what this particular one was, there was an opportunity that the state was going to allow for outdoor expansion of service for food and beverage establishments. And so quite honestly, our economic development team and our community development team worked very closely together to try to develop opportunities to support different restaurants throughout the community and offered opportunities to help them expand so they can try to support their businesses with that opportunity. And so we created processes very quickly in response to that and sent out notices to all the restaurants in Goochland County. A number had taken up the opportunity to do that, and that opportunity continues to be available to all the businesses in the community. Community development stands ready to work with them, and it's a very simple process with us. And I understand those that have ABC licenses, somehow the state's even found a way to streamline their process. So it could basically be done very quickly to be able to allow restaurants to expand. From the county's perspective, we're not trying to be heavy-handed. If we can help you expand and serve an area, we're looking to do that. We're just quite honestly making sure that ADA issues aren't compromised and basic kinds of things while they do that expansion. And so we're here to help anyone that has an interest in doing that. And so that's what item number 1 really ultimately supports. Items 4 through 8. There is no formal action that's being asked of the board other than to authorize us to have public hearings on these items. Each of the items have been reviewed with the board and 2x2s. They're also in response to enabling legislation from the state and General Assembly. And so we're simply asking the board to consider setting public hearings for July 7th for public feedback and additional consideration for each of those items. And I'm glad if the board would like more detail on any one of them, I'm glad to get into it. And Ms. McGee has taken leadership role in all of these with the department's feedback. We stand ready to answer any question. All we're asking at this point is consideration for the public hearing, no further action at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Badesky. So do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8?
Yeah, Madam Chair, just maybe a clarification really quick on the consent agenda. Item number 1, it says consideration. I assume that if we approve the consent agenda, we're actually approving the item as opposed to approving consideration. I assume we're approving the item. Okay.
Yes, you
All
are.
right, that being said, Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda excluding items number 2 and 3 as presented.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Peterson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sharp. So, any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consent agenda is approved, minus the 2 items that were removed. All right, now on to new business. So the first is agency presentations, the registrar, and then public utilities. So is Ryan joining us by, no, I see him. There he is. All right, good afternoon, Mr. Mulligan.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Brodesky. Thank you, members of the board. Thank you for having me here to update you on what the Office of the Registrar has been working on and what's down the road. So first, I would like to start about this time last year. We were dealing with a population rebalancing between 2 precincts to make way for a lot of development in the eastern side of the county. So we moved 800 voters from one precinct to another. There was a lot involved in that, notifying all the voters that were affected, training my officers to know what to do if someone showed up in the wrong precinct, programming the machines so that they show the correct information so they can know where to send them. And then after that, of course, there was the Goochland-Louisa boundary agreement issue. So that after that was all said and done, that created a bunch of split precincts and multiple ballot styles at different precincts, which as far as I know, I don't think Goochland had ever dealt with that before. So despite those 2 things, we were able to have a successful election in 2019 with the 800 voters possibly going to the wrong precinct. We got all that handled. Multiple ballot styles, programming the machines, training my election officers to know how to handle all that. So that was, took quite some effort, but we were able to have that successful election in the past November. And then, of course, I eased right into a presidential primary during a global pandemic. That was fun, but again, with proper planning, we were able to get that taken care of successfully. Currently, I have, as Mr. Brodesky mentioned, I am dealing with the June 23rd Republican primary. That was originally scheduled for June 9th. It was moved to June 23rd. So we're creating procedures that can be followed on Election Day to keep all of our election officers safe, making sure the facilities are taken care of. We do have one emergency polling place relocation due to the pandemic. Voters normally voting at the Blair Road precinct, which is at the Collegiate Athletics Building at 400 Blair Road. For this election, we have them voting at St. James Baptist Church across the street at 401 Blair Road. This is because Collegiate is closed due to the pandemic and we're not allowed to use that facility. Let's see here. Oh, and at the 3 precincts we have that vote at fire stations, they'll still be voting at the fire station, but they will be voting in the equipment bays where the fire trucks are normally parked for this election. I do want to mention that voting absentee by mail is highly encouraged for this election. Again, to keep everybody safe, to keep the voter safe on election day, and to keep my election officers safe. So there's ways to do that online, or you can give me a call at 804-556-5803. I also want to give a big thank you to Randy Buzzard in the IT department, working with my office to get our office to meet the new minimum security standards that have been imposed by the Department of Elections. Leading up to the presidential, they've increased the security we need on the network so that we can access the voter database and all that stuff. He's been a big help. I appreciate that. Down the road, of course, we have the presidential election in November. HB 1, House Bill 1 that just passed comes into effect July 1st, and that will mean that this presidential election is going to be the first time in Virginia where there is no excuse absentee voting. That's going to be a big deal. Anybody can vote absentee requiring no reason, and that's for the full 45 days. Normally, absentee voting is going on, but now they don't need a reason. So that could mean a huge turnout for that. And another bill that passed that I thought I should let you know about is that with every absentee ballot sent out, I need to send the return postage with it. So that's going to add another 50 cents or so to every absentee ballot that I mail out. And that's all I have for you. Did I move too quickly? Good. Any questions for me?
Any questions? I do have
Sure.
one, and I know it's online, I can look it up, it's,
Yeah.
you're here, and I'll ask you. What is the last day to request an absentee ballot for June 23rd?
To be mailed out to you? Okay, so the absolute deadline would be June 16th.
Okay,
But that only gives you 7 days for me to get the ballot to you and for you to get the ballot back to me. So I wouldn't suggest waiting until, but that is the deadline, June 16th.
and what happened, I know there was, it was a controversy, but I don't know what the result was. The signature on the witness signature on the absentee
Yes.
ballot, was that resolved, and how was that resolved?
Sure. So I believe there was a lawsuit by the League of Women Voters
Yes.
saying that if the governor is asking that we stay at home and to limit, contact and stuff, that it wasn't right to tell voters that they needed a witness signature on their absentee ballot.
Right.
So I have been told to not deny any absentee ballots that are returned without a witness signature.
So that was the court rule, and is
Yep.
that it's not required
Right.
for this
For this election.
election,
Yeah.
under this particular health emergency?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. That's what I need.
Anything
Okay.
else?
All right, well, thank you very
Thank you.
much. Keep up good work.
Thank you.
Okay, and the next item is agency presentation by Public Utilities. And that would be, there he is.
All right, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Matt Longshore, Director of Public Utilities. And I'll be presenting to you our annual report for FY 2020 this afternoon. So to start, I just wanted to go over a few core functions of our department. And our most basic function is we serve water and sewer services to over 1,800 residential and commercial accounts throughout the county. And a quick breakdown of that is we have just over 1,500 residential accounts, 300 commercial accounts, and I just wanted to make note that some of those commercial accounts are very large customers, and those include the likes of Capital One, CarMax, Performance Food Group, and so on. And so it's taking that into account, it's safe to say we serve thousands, if not tens of thousands, of residents and business employees on a daily basis. And the way we do that is we operate 2 water, systems and 2 wastewater systems. Those systems include 8 sewer pump stations, 2 water booster pump stations, 3 water storage tanks, 1 chloramine booster station, and approximately 150 miles pipeline, and that's quickly growing. Some other functions include consistently sampling our water systems to make sure we're in compliance with VDH and federal standards. And what that includes is monthly bacteriological testing, quarterly disinfection byproduct testing in our courthouse system, and annual DBP testing in our eastern central system. We also test for lead and copper every 3 years, and once we do all this testing, every year we actually compile all those results and put those in a report called a Consumer Confidence Report. We have those reports on our website, and we make them available to the public upon request. Another function of ours is we actually do all of our own utility locating in-house. We are a member of the VA 811 organization, and so when a contractor or excavator calls in what's called a locate ticket, VA 811 will contact us with that ticket and let us know where we need to go mark utilities and when we need to have them marked. And so just to give you an idea of what that workload looks like, we addressed over 3,600 VA 811 locate tickets last year. Just doing some quick math, that's around 14 tickets a day, so that keeps us very busy. Another function of our department is we perform construction inspections on all new public utility infrastructure, and whether that's our own capital improvement projects or development-driven projects, we want to make sure we see every stick of pipe that goes in the ground, every valve, every hydrant, every manhole, and we want to make sure that all that infrastructure is installed under compliance of the county standards and specifications. And we just want to make sure before we take this infrastructure into the public system that it's a quality product and it's going to last for many years to come. I mentioned we serve over 1,800 accounts. We also bill over 1,800 accounts, and we do that on a bi-monthly basis. So what that means is we go out 6 times a year, we read all these meters, we bring all that data into our billing system, and we process all that data in-house. What that means is we go through all the data, we make sure it's correct, we look for any problem accounts or any high usage bills, any low usage bills, anything like that, anything that stands out, we want to make sure we try to catch that before bills go out. That's quite a big undertaking every other month. The only part of that process that we subcontract out is the printing and mailing of the bills. Another function is we also maintain a vast GIS database. What this means is we want to know where all of our infrastructure is, whether that's pipelines, manholes, valves, hydrants, anything like that, and especially new infrastructure coming online. We want to make sure we capture that and collect that data and have it all in one centralized place. And so that's why we use GIS. That stands for our Geographical Information Systems. We bring that data into that program. We also assign it attributes, and those can be anything such as what size pipe is it, what material it is, what depth is a manhole, stuff like that. We want to have that information at our fingertips to be able to address certain situations as quickly as possible. Just some usage statistics. This is for calendar year 2019. In the Goochland Courthouse area, we purchase all of our drinking water from the Department of Corrections. We also purchase wastewater treatment from the Department of Corrections. In 2019, we averaged around 87,000 gallons per day, and that represents 8.7% of our total allocation from the DOC. We also averaged around 53,000 gallons per day for sewer usage, and that represents 39% of our total allocation with the DOC. In the East End system, we purchase all of our drinking water from Henrico County. We purchase our wastewater treatment services from the city of Richmond. We have much larger allocations on the East End, and we have currently a much larger customer base on the East End. And the numbers, as you can see, reflect that. We use an average of just over 1 million gallons per day of drinking water, which represents 4.3% of our total allocation, and that's our total build-out allocation with Henrico County. We also, as far as sewer collections go, use just over 500,000 gallons per day of sewer collections, which represents 3.4% of our total allocation with the city of Richmond. One thing you can notice on the trends is the much higher water usage versus sewer usage, especially in the summer months. Last year, we had near drought conditions towards the end of the summer, early fall, and that really reflects it on the water usage, where folks were irrigating to keep their lawns green. Some goals and accomplishments over the past fiscal year. One of them's been mentioned in several presentations, but it was a great project for us, so just wanted to mention it one more time. Was the completion of the Old Oaks Water Service Project. This is a very unique project where we got to partner with Virginia DEQ, as well as Aqua Virginia, so that's 2 public agencies and 1 private company got to work on 1 project. So that's very unique in our industry. What happened with that project is DEQ actually provided the funding. We provided the engineering and construction management services, and Aqua Virginia is the owner of that system and operator of that system. So what this project included is the construction of a new booster station, about 1.5 miles of new water mains and 26 residential connections. And the goal of this project was to provide clean drinking water to the Old Oaks neighborhood residents whose drinking wells have recently been impacted by petroleum contamination. Other ongoing projects, we're currently in the midst of our Hickory Haven Seminary Forest Sewer Project. We're currently at 90% design. We're waiting for some feedback from a couple agencies, and then we'll be taking that engineering to 100% design. After that, we'll be proceeding to moving into easement acquisition services, and we hope to have that project under construction later this year. Another project that's currently ongoing, if you've driven down Patterson Avenue lately in the East End, you'll see some 16-inch water lines sitting on the side of the road, and that's the picture you see in that presentation in the bottom right-hand side was taken last week. And so that project is currently under construction, and what that entails is about a 1,600-foot water line extension down Patterson Avenue. And that will serve some businesses in the area and will eventually connect back into the West Creek water line. Another project we currently have underway in the engineering and field services stage is Jenkins Trailer Park Water Connection Project. That is also another unique project where we acquired some grant funding through VDH to be able to make that connection. We're currently, as I mentioned, in the engineering and field services stage, and we hope to have that project under construction a little bit later this year. Another project we have going on is our 2020 Utility Master Plan update. Just a quick background, in 2015, we developed the first ever utility master plan for the county. At that time, we committed ourselves to updating that plan, it being a working document every 5 years. So this will be the first update. We're at about 95% completion. We're still hashing out a couple details with our consultant who's working on the project with us. I hope to be able to have that in presentation format for you all very soon. A couple things that update does for us. As far as the CIP section goes in that update, it's still organized by time steps, but we're starting to add capacity triggers to those CIPs. And so what that basically says is when a certain development comes into the county, does a project need to move forward? Can it move backwards? Stuff like that. So we want to be able to make sure that we have the mechanisms in place where we can accommodate certain development, certain projects with utility capacity. Another addition in the master plan update is we'll be adding a R&R section, and that's renewal or replace section, to be able to address and identify some of those projects coming down the pipeline. And one more new thing that we'll be adding in this version of the master plan is sanitary sewer shed delineation maps. And what this does is it gives us a tool to be able to assist developers on how we can best serve their parcels with sanitary sewer. And it just kind of outlines that all in one map and provides them that information up front when it comes to them assessing certain projects. So our future outlook, what we'd like to do over the next fiscal year is we'd like to begin the engineering and design of the Huguenot Hills Service Project. That's currently in the CIP. We would definitely like to begin construction of the Hickory Haven Seminary Forest Sewer Project and get that underway, so we can get those folks served. We'd like to complete a regional sewer model. We want to do this in partnership with Henrico County. And the main goal of this sewer model is to best determine ways to optimize the operations of our Eastern Goochland Pump Station, which, as you know, handles most of the sewage from the east end of our county, but also handles a fair amount of sewage from Henrico County, and it's also connected to Henrico's and the City of Richmond system on the discharge end. So we're looking at modeling all these flows together to see if we can figure out if there's anything we can do operationally to optimize how that pump station is used. We want to continue with the engineering phase of the DOC's courthouse wastewater treatment plant capacity upgrade. We initially spoke with them last year. We've been working through some things, and we hope to have an update on how that project's going for you very soon. But we're looking forward to getting the engineering for that project underway and seeing where that leads us. We'd like to complete an inflow and infiltration study for the courthouse sewer collection system, and that just addresses some issues that typically come with the age of a system. And the courthouse system is generally approaching that age, so we're looking forward to getting that study underway. And of course, we'll continue to meet and exceed state and federal standards. Last but not least, I just wanted to give a big thank you to our utility staff. I know I get to stand up here and tell you all about all the good things we're doing and how we're serving our customers and getting all this work done. But the reality is these folks are the ones in the trenches every day, making sure our customers are taken care of and that all the work's getting done. So again, I just wanted to share my appreciation for all their dedication and hard work. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Board, any questions? All right, Mr. Longshore, thank you very much. Looks like you're home free. Thanks.
All right.
Okay. Our next presentation will be by Ms. Hunter on residential development and undeveloped building lots. And here she is. Here she is.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Badesky, Joanne Hunter, Director of Community Development. It's very good to be back here before you after a couple months off.
Never thought you'd say that, right?
Yes, did not think I'd say that, but I did miss this. So this is an update of where we are in our residential and map showing our undeveloped lots in the county. First time we did this map was in 2016. We updated it in the spring of 2018. So here's another 2-year update. What this shows is all properties that have had some sort of rezoning for residential development. So what it does not show is the number of lots that are by right, A1, A2 splits, family subdivisions, things like that. And we estimate that we get about 75 to 100 of those a year. So this is sort of about half of our lots are those sorts of agricultural splits. So what this map shows you is it has all of the subdivisions that are either actively under construction, building permits being issued, or have not started construction. Several subdivisions, such as Parkside 1, 2, and 3, have moved off to the 2018 one because that's built out. So you can see here we have a estimated time frame for each development of when we think it's going to start. So we have potential through rezonings, the residential rezonings. We've had 24,023 residential building lots approved. The one thing that's very important to point out, and you'll see they're marked with an asterisk, are the age-restricted ones. So we have Avery Point, Mosaic, Parkside, and Tuckahoe Pines. So of those 2,410 lots, 1,962 of them are age-restricted. So that's really, really shocking when you put it together. I knew we had a lot, but I didn't realize how
Wow,
many
it's a
we
big
had.
percentage.
So those are, again, different types of services. While they may not impact schools and things like that, it is an impact for fire and rescue and things like that. You can see that also has how many lots have been recorded and the number of building permits. So we have, of those 2,410 lots, 960 are already recorded. 658 of them have already received building permits. And so we have about 302 lots out there that anybody could come in at any time and apply for a building permit. They are scheduled, they are ready to go. And when we have about 1,450 on-recorded lots, and majority of those are in those age-restricted development that have not come online yet. So this is just a blow-up of the spreadsheet. Wanted to just point out a few things you can take a look at. See, for example, Reader's Branch, that was approved in 2018. That was a 303-lot subdivision. They had anticipated, during the rezoning, about an 8-year build-out. They are about 18 months in of construction, and they already have 189 lots of those recorded, and 100 already have building permits, and I'd say about 50 of them are already occupied. So I think their 8-year time frame is going to be more like a 3 to 4 year time frame. So it's pretty obvious that these new developments that are getting approved in the county are desirable and people are moving into them. And we're seeing that with most of the residential development. It's moving faster than what they anticipated. We saw the same thing with Parkside. Mosaic has indicated they have a very high sale numbers, more than what they anticipated. So the developments build it, and they are coming, right? So we don't get 2019 population estimates until July 1. They'll come out with them. So the most recent information I've had is 2018. Our estimate is our population is 23,176. So when I go to a lot of community meetings or make presentations to the Ruraltons and all, I always like to ask people, how many new homes do you think we get each year? And I get wild numbers, anything from 5 to 500. So I'm not going to put the board on the spot. I'm going to give you the answer. So in 2019, we had 213 homes built. And that represents about a 2% growth rate for the county. Here is our numbers for the last few years. So 2014 to 2016, we were still recovering from that recession, and the numbers generally were under 150. But since 2017, it's been very strong, ranging about 200, with the highest being 2019 with the 213 new houses. Our average household size is about 2.3 in the county. So we're estimating we're adding about 400 to 500 new residents each year in the county. Also provided you with some of the building permit values. Now this is just the building permit. It does not include the trades permits like the electrical and mechanical and things like that. So it gives you an idea, and it's generally those numbers. For sale house numbers would be significantly higher than that, but that's the average without the trade permits. And it's about $300,000, our average building permit. Oops. So basically, in summary, just want to let you know where we are. Our growth rate is about 2%. We, in our comp plan, don't have a specific targeted growth rate, but most localities that do have a targeted growth rate, they do desire to have about a 2% growth rate. That is a manageable amount of growth. It's good to have good and healthy to have new construction, new residents in your community. However, with a 2% growth rate, you can typically maintain public services, which we know is important to the board. So, and overall, we're in a pretty good shape right now for residential development. We don't have any large residential projects pending right now. The only future residential that we know will be coming probably in the next few years is there's still 20 acres of multifamily zoning approved in West Creek, so that would probably be about another 330 apartments, but no other residential projects on the books or pending right now. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Wow, this is good information. Board, any questions? Mr.
Yeah,
Peterson?
Madam Chair, have you seen anything that's discernible over the last 3 or 4 months?
The building permits have not changed in any manner. They are coming in as, we usually get about 6 to 7 new ones a week, and we're still running those numbers about the same. So we have not seen any change in existing projects, that the construction is still continuing. We're probably seeing less of new projects coming in. I think that's the change that we're seeing.
Okay, good, thank you.
All right, no other questions? All right, thank
Okay,
you, Ms.
thank
Hunter.
you.
Appreciate it. Great info. Okay, and now we have the infamous farm tire disposal program. Mr. Stamey. And he's on his way in.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Derek Stamey, Deputy County Administrator for Operations, and it is my pleasure to present to you our proposed Goochland County Farm Tire Program. As you may be aware, we have been experiencing a lot of citizen feedback and interest as it pertains to what we call a farm tire type of collection program at our county convenience centers. It's really just an oversized tire program, and what we've done is we've gone through the process of evaluating our capabilities to offer this type of program. Currently, we don't offer anything larger than 24 inches in diameter off the rim. And staff is actually proposing to implement the new program strictly at the central convenience centers, and there's a couple of reasons for this. That location actually offers more storage capacity, as well as the ability to store these tires out of the environmental impacts. In other words, we don't want them to get rained on. We don't want them to fill with water, and it breeds mosquitoes and things of that nature. And at this point, our proposal does allow for a 24.5-inch tire to be received and accepted all the way up to 42 inches. Proof of residency would be required as part of this program, and staff would administer this program through our current CVWMA disposal contract. Staff would also be responsible for the transport of the tires once our storage capacity has been met. At this time, we feel that that would be 1 to 2 times per year, but we'll continue to monitor that as if the program's implemented. We could potentially implement the program by August of 2020. Appropriate signage would be updated and utilized at the Central Convenience Center, and the public would be notified of the change via social media, print media, as well as electronic media. And as we do with all of our new initiatives and all of our ongoing programs, we will monitor it for effectiveness and report back. To give you an idea of our current fees, we do require a fee collection on multiple types of tires. That includes passenger tires and small truck tires of $2. Tires that are on the rims. In other words, if someone brings us a tire and the rim's still on it, we have to pop it off and place it in the storage bin. That would cost an extra $4 per tire. Large truck tires that we currently accept are 19 to 24 inches in diameter on the rim, and that's $13 per tire. And again, our proposed fee for tires 24.5 to 42 would be $30 per tire. That fee would cover all the administration of the program, our vendor costs associated with the disposal through CVWMA, our staff costs, and our fuel machinery costs. Thus, the fee would essentially be cost neutral. We would need to amend the county fee ordinance related to our convenience center fees, and at this time, staff would like to request that the board set a public hearing for the July 7th, 2020 meeting with a public hearing scheduled for August 4th, 2020. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, first of all, any questions about the program?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you, Derek. 2 questions. One, the larger tires, they would need to be off-rim, I assume. We wouldn't have the capability to take the larger tires?
We
off?
would not be able to take those off the rim.
Great. And then what happens to the tires? How often are they collected from us? Where do they go?
It'll be a daily program, so there won't be a singular day dedicated to the collection of that tire. We have the capacity to accept them as they come in, and we would store them. We've got a large pole barn structure at the Central Convenience Center, which we actually recently got rid of a lot of items recently, and we'll be able to store those tires in those bays, and it can handle a very large amount of what we expect in terms of our capacity, so.
But how often would they be taken from us?
We
And-
would actually be responsible for transporting them to the vendor, and we expect that to be one to two times per year, per calendar year at this point.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I actually,
All right, Mr.
I didn't think I would, but it is the farm tire program, so. I didn't think to ask this earlier either, when we talked about it originally, but what's driving us wanting to do this?
Well, we've had a lot of feedback from our farming community. Jonathan Lau has mentioned it, Mr. Lau has mentioned it a lot in his public comment. We've reached out to the community and asked for feedback when we started the analysis of this program. And at first, we had started with, well, 24.5 inches will work, and then the more we reached out to folks, we understood that that wouldn't meet the demand or the capacity that we're expecting. And we ultimately settled on the 42-inch because, number one, that's the max that our vendor could handle and what we were also capable to transport, but we do feel that this will make a dent in what we're hearing from the community,
And what is it that you're hearing from the community?
that they are desiring this type of farm tire disposal program from the
Okay.
county.
All right, because what do they do, what, do we know what they do with the tires now?
Well, folks get rid of them in their own ways through various methodologies, dumping them in places that they shouldn't.
Well, that's really the genesis of my question. Do we have a littering problem with these tires?
Mr. Chairman, if I can add to it, I don't believe we're picking up a lot of farm tractor tires through a littering program, so I want to be clear about that. There are other ways environmentally that are not as sensitive that people historically have gotten rid of them. All that being the case, that's not the norm. Some people are building walls with them and those kinds of things because they just can't get rid of them, or they're driving over an hour away to dispose of them
Right.
outside of Goochland County right now. So when we've met with our farming community, and I just want to be very clear, I don't want anything I said to be misstated, they're very good stewards of the environment. It's just been a hardship on them to dispose of these tires over time. We've had a great number of farmers come up to us, at least in my 4 years, and expressed interest in this program. There is not one that in a regional locality around us that mirrors this right now. That's why we put one of the restrictions to Goochland residents on it. We don't know how overwhelmed we may or may not get with this program, but it is in response to specific requests of our ag community. The Virginia Farm Bureau has reached out to us expressing that on behalf of their members as far as a need. And so in some ways, it's fundamentally support to our ag community, a convenience factor for them so they're not traveling out of the county. For us, we are able to, at least as we envision it right now, keep the program cost neutral and have the facilities to provide it. But I wouldn't say we have a true littering program with farm tires.
All right. Because, and what prompted me to ask the question now was re-looking at this and the cost. Because I was thinking if people have been getting rid of them in non-environmentally friendly ways and it costs less than the program, I just didn't I know it's cost neutral, which is fine, but I didn't want the cost to be an impediment to what we're trying to accomplish. And so that's why I was asking, what are we trying to accomplish? What's driving this?
I've presented the fee that we've proposed to some of the folks that we asked for the initial feedback from, and
And
all have been in support of
Hopefully
it.
they're like, oh, that's awesome. I hope
Yes.
that's what we're getting. It's like, oh, geez, I can't afford that.
Because to dispose of these tires now, they either have to drive an hour, or they have to actually buy specific blades for saws to cut through the steel belts in the tires, which costs a lot of money. It's much easier just from a time is money perspective to be able to bring it to the convenience center and dispose of it for
Good,
$30.
good. Well, obviously, we'll monitor it as well, and thank you. That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Madam
thank you.
Chairman, let me just
Yes,
clarify
Ms.
with
McKee.
you, Mr. Stamey, because are you looking for a public hearing in July?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to, because I know the slide still says August, and I know that was your first thought, but if the
Yes,
board
that's
allows
correct.
you, it
Yeah, I was
certainly is
gonna
something
ask
that
the
could
same
move to
question.
July.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, the slide looked like we didn't need to take action tonight, but it looks like we do need to take action.
Well, request to set
What's a request to set?
Request to set,
for July.
and that's an action, isn't it? Request.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. Right, and that's what Mr. Podesta said at the beginning, that we're, yes, this is an action we're taking tonight to set.
Got it, thank you.
All right, so, thank you, Mr. Stamey, if there's no other questions. And was that a motion, Mr. Lumpkins?
I think even by my standards, that probably was not very close. I move that we set a public hearing on July 7th. Is that what you want? Not what the slide
That's
says,
correct.
but you want,
That's
yeah. I request that we set a public hearing on an ordinance change to the county fee ordinance to reflect the new Goochland Farm Tire Program.
Very nice. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so be added to our July 7th agenda. Okay, thank you, Mr. Stamey. All righty. Okay, so next up, Ms. Horlacher. We'll give the fiscal year 2020 budget updates and budget amendments.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Madam Chairman. Before we get into the year-end projections and the amendments, I want to talk to you a little bit about the CARES Act funding. I know we brought this up to you before, but we have a little bit more information on it now. So the background of this funding is that it's one-time use federal funds made available through the Commonwealth from the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, Coronavirus Relief Fund. A lot of acronyms, of course. On May 12th, the Virginia Secretary of Finance notified Goochland County that its allocation of CRF funding made available through the CARES Act is $2,072,358. And Goochland County has submitted the required certification to the state, and funds should actually be received this week. So, eligible expenses, in a very, very broad strokes, eligible expenses include those related to Goochland's direct response to the pandemic, which includes public health needs, and second-order effects of the pandemic are eligible, including economic support to those impacted. It's very clear you cannot spend the fund on are offsetting any losses of revenue as a result of the pandemic. Some of the costs that we believe are eligible that we've incurred to date and that we may incur in the future, just to kind of give you an idea, a flavor of what they will pay for. Overtime costs for public safety positions responding to the public health emergency. Acquisition of personal protective equipment and sanitation and disinfectant product purchases. Technology and equipment costs incurred to expand utilization of telework. Costs related to higher frequency or more specialized cleaning and disinfection of county facilities, and facility and workspace modifications. So those are funds we have already spent. I don't have a number on those yet. We're going to come back to you in July and tell you exactly what that number is. And so, we're feeling good that we can reimburse ourselves. These are things we didn't plan to spend funds on. But it will hardly account for the $2 million that we are eligible to spend by December 30th, I should also clarify. So Mr. Badesky and I are talking to other leaders in the county and meeting with other people and trying to get some idea of how they've been impacted by the pandemic and what we could do to assist them. So we have met with General Services. There, we're discussing a lot of things, building improvements, the protection, the plexiglass, the glass, whatever it is, sneeze guards, kinds of things. And they've set up all kinds of stations around for hand sanitizer, gloves, masks, things like that. And there's also some other improvements they're looking into, things like filtration, better filtration systems. We've met with IT. Of course, there was a lot of initial costs to get laptops for a lot of people so that they could telework at home. There's also the potential for improving security now that people are working at home, getting more electronic means of signing papers, enhancing teleworking type capabilities. Some of the other folks that we have not talked to, but we have meetings scheduled to talk with, we're talking to the schools tomorrow. We are talking with the sheriff. We are talking with Fire and Rescue. We are going to be talking to Dr. Frank. I'm not sure, I forget who else is all on our list, but we're just in the middle of starting to talk about these things, or just getting started, really. So the plan for these funds is that we'll appropriate the revenue as we define the needs for it. So we're not going to come to you and say, hey, give us authority to spend the $2 million. We're going to come to you and say, can we spend this much of it on this? So basically, the way it works in my world, the accounting world, is you don't recognize those funds as revenues until you actually spend them. So, because then eligible expenses become reimbursable. We'll have the money up front, but we won't recognize it as a federal revenue. We'll come back to you in July and kind of clean up FY20, appropriate some funds for money that we've already spent. It's not our usual practice, but I've already talked to the auditors about it, and they're fine with that. They understand these are very unusual circumstances. So in order to kind of clean things up, it's just going to be easier to do FY20 sort of in arrears. And then going forward, we'll be able to ask you to appropriate funds that we're going to spend in FY21. These funds will be audited as federal grants through our annual audit. So that's their mechanism for safeguards of these funds, is it's treated just like other federal funds that social services receives, or the schools receive, or any kind of federal grant. So eligible expenses, that determination will be with our auditors. So I have been spending a lot of time talking to our auditors, discussing what kind of things that they are going to feel comfortable, giving their okay to. We're going to report back to you each month on details of how these funds were spent, and of course the ongoing plans. And we're continuing to meet with the agencies and departments to assess needs that they have. And now, at a very, very high level, some of the things that we've put together so far. So this would be including any money that we've already spent. And these were the broad areas that we're looking at. So distribution to schools, like I said, we're talking to the schools, Dr. Raley and Debbie White tomorrow. And I just broke it into years, FY20 and FY21. And will explain to us tomorrow what they believe they've spent that would be eligible for FY20 and what they might be able to spend those funds on in FY21. Technology, we talked about that. Devices and equipment, that's all the things to improve our security, the laptops, the teleworking. We also put some money in for broadband. Now, we thought broadband was, since they said you could enhance teleworking and you could enhance long-distance learning, we thought broadband was sort of a natural in there. Well, they've defined that a little tighter, and they said, yes, you can improve your broadband if it addresses needs during this pandemic. So, so we have to think of some short-term ways that perhaps we could enhance our broadband. In other words, it has to meet the needs of the distance learning and teleworking in this crisis. It can't be a project that finishes up in a year and then theoretically the crisis is over and you've, I can tell by your expressions that you're as confused as I am, but that is the latest information that we're getting. So the cleaning and protection area, we are just starting conversations with both fire, sheriff, and we have had conversations with general services, and they've given us a list of enhancements that they feel that would contribute to the safety of not only citizens coming in, but employees. Employee compensation, this is just money, well, part-time wages for repurposed employees. I don't know if you've noticed, but we've got Parks and Rec part-time employees that have been doing a wonderful job of going around and hitting all the doorknobs and touch spots in the building. And so their wages are eligible for reimbursement. And then we put some money in there because we haven't had any of this, but there is some federal leave that is guaranteed to employees from the CARES Act. And so should we need some funds for that, we have that designated. Under community relief, human services contribution, we don't know what that's going to look like. We will be talking to you about that more, but that again is just a sort of a set aside or an idea of how maybe we can help out. And I will tell you more about a social services program that is getting some more funding. And then economic development, and an opportunity exists to help some companies or businesses in Goochland if we can come up with a program. A lot of localities are doing that, taking small businesses and giving them grants. And again, a lot of work involved in that because you have to set up the program and then you have to ensure that they are spending the funds, you know, that they really had the losses that. So it's complicated in a lot of ways, but it's an opportunity in a lot of ways as well. So, and we will be having further conversations, and I welcome any questions and conversations that you have on this now, and I'll stop here before I go on to the rest of the presentation.
Any questions or comments? Spooner.
I just want to make sure I understand how this is going to work. So as of next week, we'll have the $2,072,000 in an account or in our budget.
Right.
Then we are going to look to, for lack of a better word, spend that money in appropriate ways. And I appreciate all the efforts finding out other agencies, talking to auditors. And then we'll have to report back to the government how we spent the money. And they'll say if it was okay to spend it or not.
And not really, we will just be audited. So we will be audited by our auditors and we'll say, in FY20, we had $150,000 in eligible expenses. And here's all, and we're keeping close track and record of those. And here, we have a book. Here's our book of what we spent the money on. You know, you go through it and decide if everything passes the smell test.
And we're engaging with, what it sounds like we're engaging with them now.
Yes.
Proactively. So I
Yes.
think that's fantastic. Thanks.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Mr. Lumpkins?
On schools, I saw in the article in the paper a while back or some online that Goochland, I saw it was a list of all the counties, and they had a list of CARES funding that was available to the schools. Are the schools getting separate from this bucket?
Yes.
They do have some separate CARES funds, which I think Dr. Rayleigh will probably discuss, but they are actually required to share that with private schools as well, so it's not a lot of money. This CARES money is our decision. This is the local governments have the ability to pass that on to the schools if they so desire. And we just felt that to share in this funds with them, and of course, like I said, further discussions tomorrow. And
So how did you get to the prioritization? I mean, I'm not saying that these are in the slide we're looking at here. They're not in a priority order from
no,
top to
they're
bottom.
not.
But
at
how
this
did you
point.
get to the allocation?
Swag.
Years of experience.
Just, you know, looking at what, talking to other localities, seeing what they're spending the funds on, and, you know, trying to think, and I think Mr. Badesky was saying, you know, what are people asking for? What do people need? And that's what we're trying to address. We're not getting a whole lot of, you know, feedback. We get a lot of ideas internally. You know, for instance, the fire department could always use better ways to sanitize the inside of their ambulances and things like that. But that, if, you know, that is part of the feedback that we need from you as well is, you know, what do people need? What are the needs?
So you said a moment ago, there you said you're not getting a lot of feedback
From
where?
From citizens, from businesses, from.
I think it's a
Well,
great
they know.
question, because one of the, Barbara started off saying that we cannot use this to supplant revenues that we were not receiving.
Right.
And so what did we do when this happened? We tightened our belt, just like, people at home are doing, and we cut expenditures. With exceptions of ones that we critically had to make to be able to operate and keep our employees safe and our citizens safe.
Right.
Well, some amount of this funding will go to help us offset those expenditures. And so in July, Barbara will bring you that exact amount. And so whatever amount of that we can reimburse ourselves for will come back to the board sort of unassigned. You'll have that money to just basically backfill what you had to spend. And mostly what we spent was already in budgets, or there'll be some outside of it that this money will recover. And then the money going forth from July 1 through December are really opportunities that we have to make investments to either offset expenditures that we had to grow with overtime or extra cleaning and all those kinds of things, but will also allow us to put additional measures in place that we didn't have prior. Some of the things we did through general services was temporary. We'll be moving some of those potentially to more permanent measures. One of the things that you'll have the benefit of doing, other than a small amount, a portion of this to general services, all the expenditures going forward, and your question's very pertinent. How did you come up to these categories? We think these are general areas where we are allotting this, but if an area we have that we don't identify expenditures that the board concurs with was budgeted for $400,000, but we only had $300,000 worth of expenditures, we will reallocate a portion of those funds to another need here. This is a very high level sort of allocation, but as we go, you will approve all of those expenditures and future appropriations of funds based on projects that are brought to you. And so they may not, at the end of the day, perfectly align with this, but if they do not, and they're certainly under, we'll basically realign these categorical areas to meet other needs. And part of why we're sharing this with you today is we just wanted to, if there was a gut check that I'm just not open to committing to this much to broadband, we didn't want to spend time on a plan. And broadband's probably the number one issue that I've heard from residents of as a need, residents and businesses as a need. So we didn't want to shortchange that. We'd actually originally started higher with broadband, and then we got guidance that said you can't do that. But for instance, if an area that we don't have a plan that we can actually deliver within 6 months, you'll have an opportunity to assign those funds to something else. I don't know if I was a little long-winded.
No, it was helpful, but
But now I'm really confused.
the last thing you said was, and I'm sorry if I missed this, because I'm trying to look at different things. The time window to spend this?
By the end of the year,
To
right?
December
That's what-
30th.
Okay, so that's the 6 months reference.
Right.
So,
Here's my thinking, because the problem with this is it creates some perverse incentives, and it hurts us, or it doesn't help us from tightening the belt, which is what we should be doing, and we did that. So now you suddenly get this money, and there's potential, I think, to really just not handle it well. And that's why my interest is, let's make sure we're doing the best we can. And to me, the starting point for doing the best we can, this is just me, would be to do, I think, what you're doing, and that is to look for all the things that we've already spent and committed to that can be covered with this. That will at least keep us from kind of getting this mentality, like, oh, we got this and let's go crazy. Let's really drill down and push it out to the things that we already have budgeted and planned that are permitted to be covered. Is that what we're doing?
Yes, I mean, we have had to spend funds that, before we even knew we were getting this money. And now we know that, those funds will be reimbursed, so to speak, to us.
Laptops, things like that.
Laptops, yes, I mean.
That can be pointed directly to.
Laptops,
What's the time frame? February 1st or something? Is that the?
It actually only goes to March 27th, starts March 27th, because that's when this was passed, when the CARES Act was passed.
So we
March
have to look at
27th.
expenditures on March 27th.
And after.
And after, yes. And then going forward till December 30th, so. And as far as priorities, I mean, this could change too and shift,
Well, it
as we
would
get
be-
more information.
It would be good for me to see, from March 27th, when we get this money, what have we already spent?
And we're tracking that.
And
They're
then
going
take
to
the
the
2.072 minus that bucket, and then see what we have with it, sort of like, what do we do with, how do we, right? So
That's
this,
a more concise way to say exactly what
That's
what
what
the
she said.
plan is. And so
okay.
and Barb, that'll come back to you at your July 7th meeting. And so you'll get more clarity on and we've been tracking really since March 13th, we started tracking, so we have all of that data. And so at that meeting, you will get clarity exactly as you just stated. We've spent $250,000, you have this much remaining. And then not only in July, but monthly thereafter. We've tried to categorize these very high level. But as we move forward, we don't want this just being, you have X number of dollars, now just go spend it. We want to make sure that it's targeted at priorities we're learning from our community, priorities that we need in our organization. This isn't just, you found an oil well in your backyard, now go do something with it. This is going to be targeted, and you'll review it monthly. And so between July and December, you will continue to see these are the projects we'd like to do. Here's how we got to the conclusions of those projects, and ask the board for authorization to spend those funds.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about, but thank you for, and I appreciate, if you already said what I kind of repeated, I apologize that I didn't catch it when it came through the first time, but that would seem to be the healthy thing
Makes
to do.
sense,
Then
doesn't
we can prioritize. Economic development, it's not a big chunk of the money, but that's one I certainly would like to hear more details, because like you talk about, a program monitoring and all that stuff could just be enough to set up, and, yeah, I mean, it gets sort of philosophical. What's the core function of a local government?
Right.
It definitely gets to that.
Yeah, well, thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, that answers.
I'm-
We're good for now.
I look forward to continued information and the approach that y'all are taking. It's kind of straight. What exactly, well, if you know the schools, are you planning, did you put down 200 and 200 for the schools, 200 this year, 200 next year?
Yes, that's the plan. We haven't discussed with them yet.
You haven't discussed what the need is, or how, I mean,
Correct, so we'll find out more tomorrow. I know I did work a little bit with Debbie White to see what costs they have incurred so far this year that might be eligible, and so that's how I came up with the 200,000.
and you're going to work with them in terms of what the separate funds that they have and how they may allocate it. And
Yeah, yes.
just a lot of moving parts that.
There are a lot of moving parts and changes frequently.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, got it. All right.
Mr.
Any
Peterson has a
questions?
question.
Well,
Questions?
just, extend the logic or follow that thought pattern. So in July, you may come back with this matrix that has all these, I'll call them buckets, and you'll drop in the expenses in each of these buckets, and we'll be able to see which of these are growing like a weed and which of these are not really attracting much attention. And then we can always adjust fire from there. Does that make sense?
That's a good way to look at it as well. And again, these priorities may shift based on what we need.
Based on the needs.
what we identify. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I will.
Before you go, I've got a couple of
Oh,
questions for you as
sure.
well. So the 2,072,000, we'll receive one lump sum check,
Yes.
and where is that? I mean, we're setting up a separate fund for that, or?
We have not, I don't know, I don't know that we have not received it yet. We didn't get it yesterday, but
whenever we get
it's
it.
coming in the next
It doesn't matter
several
when it
days.
comes.
But,
Yeah.
actually, we were just, at this point, going to keep track of it,
Just put it in the general fund?
through the books, yes. It will be deposited into the general fund. But it won't be, like I said, in the accounting world, it won't be recognized as revenue.
It'll be quarantined in a stay-at-home kind of mode?
It'll actually be a liability. It'll be quarantined as a liability, so, which sort of means you have an obligation, and then as you spend that money, you can
Then it's-
recognize it as a revenue.